A little while ago, I made a video about particularly strong Precon commanders. And while doing research for that video, I noticed how many of them are just completely broken. So, what's the strongest one then? Well, Tymna the Weaver and Crom Ludwig's Opus were both in Precons, and Blue Farm is considered the best deck in CEDH. So there we have it. It's Tymna Crom. Okay, you already know that's not the entire video. So, what is a Precon commander anyways? Obviously, the commanders on the box. I don't think we need to argue in any way that Edgar Markov or Inspirit Flagship Vessel are Precon commanders. And I hope we can also agree on the backup commanders, like Martas, Fiend Seeker or Kilo Apogee Mind. Any card that is tagged on Scryfall as Face Commander or Old Commander is fair game. But what about Korvold, for example? Korvold, Faker's King, was released as the Face Commander for the Throne of Eldraine Brawl Precon Savage Hunger. He's not tagged as a Face Commander on Scryfall, so do we not count him because of that alone? Does being in a Brawl Precon invalidate him? There's even a second argument to be made in favor of Korvold, although I think this one is much weaker. I still think it's worth bringing up. Korvold is included in the World Shaper Precon, a Junt color Precon that is at least partially centered around sacrifice. It's possible to take that unmodified decklist and swap Half-Hole for Korvold, in the same way you could swap Half-Hole for Sorrow. Korvold is in the deck and is a commander that can be used as its leader. But does that make him a backup commander? I would argue no. Korvold is just a reprint that also happens to be a legal commander for the deck. It really makes the most sense to me to stick to Face Commanders and Old Commanders as defined by Scryfall, even if that means excluding Korvold. It's fine, Korvold wasn't gonna make the list anyways. But that still creates a new problem with Commander 2016. Commander 2016 had very unusual precons because they were 4 colors. As you might expect, the set introduced a bunch of new 4-color commanders, all of which we can definitely count, but we don't need to worry about because they're not good enough. It also introduced the partner mechanic and partner commanders, like Tymna and Crom. These are the old commanders of the set. Instead of having a second 4-color legendary creature, each deck contained a partner pairing that matched the colors of the deck. For example, for the Idris Maelstrom Wanderer deck, that was Thrasios Triton Hero and Vile Smasher the Fierce. Except there's an immediate complication here because the deck also included Kaidiel Chosen of Crewfix, which could also be paired with Vile Smasher to recreate the colors. This was also true for the other decks. They each contained 2 partner commanders that shared colors, and then a third that filled out what they were missing. So let's refer to Scryfall to see which of the 2 possible pairings are considered the old commander for each deck. Wait, why is it only listing Kaidiel and Thrasios? Yeah, according to Scryfall, the old commander for this 4-color deck is 2 Simic partners. The same is true for 2 of the other decks, but then also weirdly Ishai, Ochitai Dragonspeaker and Sidar Kondo of Jamura are properly listed. I think this is just a tagging mistake, and ultimately the goal today isn't to decipher the enigmatic machinations of Scryfall, but rather to figure out which is the best Precon commander. Don't worry, I didn't forget about that, it's just a bit of a journey to get there. So here's what we're gonna do. We'll allow all partner commanders in all of the Precons, because clearly that's how it was intended. But also, Tymna and Crom aren't in the same Precon. Tymna's Precon is white, black, red and green, while Crom's is blue, red, white and green. For a card to be an alternative commander of a Precon, I think it needs to match the colors of that Precon. And that doesn't allow Tymna and Crom to be paired. They don't have the right colors. There was a Precon that matched their colors, being Sans Green, but it had neither Tymna nor Crom in it. So I'm just gonna make the executive decision that they can't compete together. For a partner pairing to be allowed, they need to appear in the same Precon. Which still leaves us with some very strong candidates. Tymna the Weaver and Tana the Bloodsour, also known as the CEDH deck Bloodpod, are from the same Precon. Bloodpod is a stacks deck that uses Tymna as a card draw engine and Tana for colors. She doesn't really do anything. It wasn't ever a top-tier deck, mostly because it's lacking blue, but it is a real proper CEDH list. The second pairing from Commander 2016 that's worth considering is Thrasios Triton Hero and Vial Smasher the Fierce. Vial Smasher is just here for colors, while Thrasios acts as a mid-game engine and an infinite mana outlet. The deck itself is exactly what you imagine, a value pile playing the best cards and combos in great colors. It doesn't win through gimmicks, but rather through sheer card quality. The tricky thing then with these partners is that of course, Thrasios and Tymna are more often than not paired with better partners, which means that there are very limited results for the exact partner pairings we are looking at right now. Still, Thrasios Vial Smasher is currently our top contender for strongest Precon commander, and with that let's move on from Commander 2016 to Commander 2017. Edgar Markov, Eminence. Now at this point I should clarify what I mean with strongest commander. These are just going to be CEDH commanders. Quantifying strong and less strong in a casual context is a bit pointless, there are too many factors to consider and it's not even the point of the endeavor, so we'll just focus on competitive, where that kind of thinking actually makes sense, and I have some stats that I can refer to. And that's why Edgar Markov isn't actually noteworthy, the guy is not a CEDH commander, frankly speaking he isn't even that good in casual. But that doesn't mean Commander 2017 doesn't have cards vying for the title. Inala Archmage Ritualist and Kess Dissident Mage are both from the set. Inala leads an incredibly intricate combo deck that wins by casting Spellseeker and memorizing a 15-step flowchart. Her Eminence ability makes it so that whenever a wizard enters the battlefield, we can pay 1 mana to make a copy of it. The first time I personally saw a CEDH deck was actually an Inala list, and I just sat there completely baffled by what was happening before me, as my opponent tutored spell after spell, creature after creature, recurring card after card, going to great extents to generate a single mana to tutor again, to duplicate another wizard, and to finally win. Inala preys on players that don't know where to interrupt her, as there are various points during her long combo chain where interaction doesn't really do anything, and then there are other moments where any disruption completely breaks the line. It's a fascinating deck that can pull all kinds of unique shenanigans completely out of nowhere, and that's mostly because it uses an Eminence commander, a commander that doesn't ever need to be on the board. But ultimately the deck is quite fragile, so it hasn't had the most tournament success. Kess is even more French. She gives her deck strong colors and her ability offers lots of recursion, but is ultimately an inferior mid-range good stuff pile when compared to the 4-color decks. It still has some results, just not a lot of them. Moving on, let's bounce back into the past again, quickly glancing at Teferi Temporal Archmage while acknowledging his accomplishments but also recognizing that his time has passed until we arrive in 2013. Commander 2013 included Derevi, Imperial Tactician. Derevi is a 3-mana band commander and makes it so that whenever Derevi enters or a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, we get to tap or untap something. Turns out there are lots of things worth untapping. Lands of course, particularly lands that make more than 1 mana, like Gaia's Cradle, but also the One Ring. And since Derevi doesn't just untap something once, but rather at least 1 permanent per turn, often more than that, Derevi has unique access to incredible value acceleration. By itself that would already be good, but what makes Derevi really stand out is her second ability. For 4 mana, we can put Derevi from the command zone straight to the battlefield. This bypasses the command attacks, which makes Derevi essentially unkillable. Then consider that Derevi is also a combo piece and synergizes with literally having any number of creatures at all, and I think you can see why this commander is absurdly broken. I've personally also taken a budget beatdown version of it to one of our local tournaments and won with it. Derevi is just an absolute monster of a commander, and that shows in her excellent results. Jumping all the way to our most recent competitor, Stellar Lee Wildcard. Released only in 2024, Stellar Lee was the face commander of the Quick Draw deck from Outlaws at Thunder Junction. She's a 3-mana Issel commander that, after we cast 3 spells in a turn, can tap to copy an instant or sorcery we control. Stellar Lee is uniquely powerful because she has various 1-card combos that allow her to immediately win the game. Once she copies any spell that untaps her, she can just tap again to copy it again and keep doing that an infinite number of times. And there are various cards that provide an advantage for each repetition, like for example Cerulean Wisps draws us a card each time we go through the cycle. This combo also operates at instant speed and can easily be restarted on the stack, simply playing on top of interaction rather than needing to actually deal with it. Stellar Lee is a card that people immediately spotted the potential of, and she's had significant tournament success since then. You know what? I'm gonna stop pointing that out for all of these. Going forward, every card we'll talk about has had significant tournament presence and success. Released 2 years earlier in the forces of the Imperium Warhammer 40k Precon, as its secondary commander was Marneus Calgar. Marneus Calgar is a 5-mana Esper commander that draws a card whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under our control, and for 6 mana can create 2 creature tokens. He's an infinite mana outlet in good colors that can also function as a mid-game value engine for a deck centered around tokens. This deck doesn't do anything crazy, it's just a strong value pile that does particularly well in extended games. From around this same era, specifically Dominaria United Commander, we also have Dihada, Binder of Veils, a 4-mana Mardu Planeswalker with only 1 relevant ability. Her -3 reveals the top 4 cards of our deck, then we may put all legendary cards from among those into our hand and the rest into our graveyard. It then creates a treasure token for each card put into our graveyard this way. This is a fantastic ability that lets us fill up our graveyard for Underworld Breach while generating tons of resources, and it can even enable Doomsday piles. A fun Underworld Breach line here is using Flicker, as in the card Flicker, to flicker Dihada and reset her, letting us self-mill our entire deck, generating 2 treasures per iteration. While this deck definitely has some vulnerabilities, it's fast enough that it can just kind of win before anybody else had a chance to get started. Finally then, let's have a look at Commander 2020. The Symbiotic Swarm Precon is an awful list helmed by a terrible card, but somehow Tayam Luminous Enigma snuck into that deck. Tayam is a very unique 4-mana Abzan commander that cares about counters. He makes all of our creatures enter with a vigilance counter, and for 3 mana, as well as removing 3 counters from our creatures, he mills us 3 cards and then lets us return a permanent with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. This ability is very tricky, because it doesn't use any delayed triggers, meaning there's no possible point of interaction after it started. Once Tayam gets to mill, he also gets to reanimate something. Usually these are a range of combo pieces and hate bears, but also lands are an option. Tayam doesn't care about what kind of permanent, just that it's 3 mana or less. It's nearly impossible for him to fizzle, and it always builds towards this critical mass of synergies and stacks that eventually becomes insurmountable, which makes this a perfect deck for extended games. Okay, that's a lot of cards, let's stop here. There are so many broken Precon commanders, it's insane. I left out Animar, Soul of Elements, Zephrys of the Hidden Ways and Prosper, Tomebound, because I didn't really think they make the cut, and that's nuts. But we'll at least acknowledge them. So, who is best? Well, there are a couple of criteria that I think we need to consider. The popularity of the card, as in how many players are bringing this to tournaments and hence think this is their best option. Then the performance of it, how well are those players actually placing? And finally, the age of the card. Now this last one might be a bit controversial, but I actually think it's very important. All the statistics I could find are absolute. They only show us the total of tracked results. But of course, if a card has been around for 10 years, then it'll have more time to get those results. A newer card with the same totals has a much higher performance density. But that's assuming the data has been tracked for all that time, which it wasn't. Look, what I'm saying here is that ultimately it's just a judgment call. So, I'm going to give place 3 to Tayam Luminous Enigma. Out of all the cards we've talked about today, he's been the most popular and has put up respectable results. Second place then goes to Stellar Lee Wildcard. While she's been less popular than Tayam, I think that's easily explained by her just being so much newer. Stellar was only released last year, and in that time frame, she's already had a huge impact. And first place goes to Marneus Calgar, who's been the most successful out of all the cards we've talked about today, getting the most high-ranking placements in tournaments while still being very popular, and he's also a relatively recent card. And that's it. Feel free to yell at me if I'm wrong in the comments. Look, I know that maybe it's Bloodpot. Maybe it's Bloodpot, but the results don't say it's Bloodpot. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I think this is my first video that is like technically CEDH focused. I don't know. I wasn't really planning on making CEDH content, but I just thought the question was interesting, so I made a video that I guess is CEDH content. Oh well, here we are. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out my Patreon, link down in the description. And I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.